now. Okay. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Isoto Live. I'm Aditya Shnoy, and I lead content marketing efforts at Isoto. And with me today is Kate Bradley Chernis. She is the CEO and founder of Lately. So, Kate, I would want you to quickly tell our audience what you do and what Lately is all about.
Hey, Adi. Hi, everybody. It's great to be here. Thank you so much. Boy, that's such a funny question because as a founder, of course, we've struggled with our elevator pitch for years. It's just this, known kind of bane of everybody's existence, and especially since I'm a marketer, I always find it like the hardest question. But I'll start like this. So I'm in the business of helping people find exactly what words will make their target audiences do what they want them to do. Typically, that's buy my stuff, right? That's really what you want. Engage is another way of saying it on social media. And so lately is designed to identify those words, the messaging, the sentence structures, literally the DNA of what makes up a social post that will have the highest possible engagement for you. And we learn a second pattern, which is, what within those messages um, will kind of give you insights about that audience at the same time. So, what are the words and ideas that will make people do what you want them to do, to click, like, comment, and share is the shortest way of saying it. Once we understand this about you, we use it to repurpose long form content. So we can take, like, this show, for example, and instantly atomize it into dozens of miniature promos that include video or audio, or it could be just text based, whatever we want. And the AI will do two things. It'll pull out the hottest highlights, like kind of like the sizzliest of the sizzle reel. But it will also rewrite the text part of it as it learns your voice over time and start to apply not only best practices that it's learning from you and your analytics, but best practices that it's learning from our vast data sets at large.
Got it. So I think the 2 points that I picked from there. One is repurposing content, which I think is essential, given that people consume content in different forms and on different platforms, and no one kind of content does not work everywhere. And the second one was AI, and AI has been the buzzword for about a year now, and everyone wants to do something about AI, wants to use AI actively, but there are some fears as well. Now, recently, our publishers have seen that with Google, AI generated content is not all that great. Like with the March core update, any kind of content that's published which does not add value or it's not helpful, like Google says, it's going to nuke it. Google has also gone ahead and de-indexed these articles as well, which is a pain point for a lot of publishers. So, and that leads me to the question that do you see like a huge shift of this kind happening on social media platforms as well? Like, do you see social media platform taking any action on AI generated content?
Yeah, so a couple of things. Number one, we're not generative AI as the world knows it, so we don't fall into this
Mhm.
trap, right? So with
Yeah.
lately, we're not prompting it. There's no prompt, and then there's no going out into a public data set to create whatever you've asked it to do. With
Yeah.
lately, we're taking our math, our algorithms, and analyzing your unique data, your social media analytics, and then we're assessing that, and then the content we're generating, it's really first it's a quote of you. So we're looking for quotes. We're actually not even rewriting anything. Like, what's the best quote? And then if you ask us to, we will enhance the quote, but in your voice specifically and according to your data. So we are skating through legal and IT with a lot of our enterprise clients, especially because we're
Mhm.
avoiding these fears, right? There's no copyright
Yeah.
issues for us. We're not throwing your data back into the public data set. And we're not in any way muddling it with all the bias of the internet. So we are
Mhm.
and also clear from Google because our I think, just to back up, like, the misunderstanding of AI is that it's the end all be all, number one, right?
Yeah.
Everybody wants magic. Nobody wants to do any work, which shocks me because, I mean, basic writing is like communication, and we've all
Yeah.
seen how very difficult we all truly believe it to be since ChatGPT was born, right? Nobody even wants to write a text message, for God's sakes, but I mean, it's amazing to me. Um, but my job isn't to give you content on social media just to give you content. My job is to give you content that actually cuts through all that noise and then also makes your target audience into evangelists, right? And we do that by interweaving human collaboration throughout our generative process. And I'm talking a lot of information here, but Harvard Business Review just recently did a report on collaborative AI, and it shows that it
Mhm.
outperforms AI alone by 7x. Now, Google knows this, and everyone we know this as well. And so, and the reason is because the human analysis is essential to making sure that it's not garbage, right? So that it doesn't get flagged by Google's algorithms or anywhere else. So when you have that component in the mix, you'll see the AI actually learning good behaviors as opposed to bad behaviors, which unfortunately, so many of us have been
Yes.
teaching the open data sets, right? Because we're
Yeah.
so poor at communication.
Absolutely.
Along,
Absolutely. I think that's a problem as well. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's
No,
really rampant. I mean, I'm concerned that we're going to get back to grunting at some point, right? Is that like,
it's a real possibility. I'm not going to discount that.
yeah,
But based on what you're saying, or what lately especially does. So, can you assume that as you go along and as you train, the model gets better and better with the output it gives?
that's right.
And with respect to, now, that leads me to a question that how easy, or is it even connected, that viral content, like whenever someone thinks of social, or they would want to do a post, I think the common thing that a lot of social media managers also hear from others is, make this go viral. There's an expectation that, hey, make this go viral. So with AI, is there is there a way to crack the algorithm, or it does not work, or how? Like, what's your take on AI and generating viral content, or recreating viral content, if I were to ask it?
Yeah, I mean, that's what we specialize in doing, right? So our customers will see up to 12,000% increased engagement, 240% more clicks, et cetera, et cetera. And it's not because we're tricking any algorithms. We're doing what humans do best on organic social, which is helping them create connection. That's what it's about. Sounds fluffy, right? But um,
Yeah.
so you know this because we talked about it previously. But I used to be a rock and roll DJ, Adi,
Yeah.
and I was broadcasting to 20 million listeners a day for XM Sirius satellite radio, and my uber power was turning listeners into fans or customers into evangelists, right? And
Yeah.
that's what we all want in marketing, is to get the connection and then this other thing, this other sort of undescribable thing. And when you make your customers your fans or your targets your fans, you get a flywheel working for you, and it works for you for free, right? So that's the dream. That's what
Yes.
we all want. What I studied was um, sort of, how to replicate this in writing, because I saw these parallels between wielding the mic and wielding the pen. And I
Mhm.
was interested in the theater of the mind, and that's when your imagination has to kick in and fill in some of the story. When you go see a movie and it's not as good as you imagined when you read the book, and you're kind of mad about that, it's because your imagination played a role here, and that's very, very powerful. And it happens when you're just listening also. It doesn't happen when you're watching TV or video, right? Because there's nothing to imagine. It's
Yeah.
all there. But there's a parallel between how the imagination of the mind works, theater of the mind, which is it has to access nostalgia and memory and emotion when you're participating in this act. And what I learned was that in music listening, when your brain listens to a new song, it must instantly access every other song you've ever heard in this instant, so it can index the new song in the library of the memory of your brain. And guess what? As it does that, it's accessing nostalgia, memory, emotion, right? Now, these things all have to be in place for trust to happen. And trust is why we buy and it's why we evangelize. And so it occurred to me that as I'm been writing with you, you've been scheduling your team has been scheduling this call with my team. We're all writing and we're reading what we write, what we read in our minds, and I can hear your
Mhm.
voice in my head as I read your social media message, your text message, whatever it is, right? And like a song, if you're clever, you're going to figure out how to tap into nostalgia, memory, and emotion and trust. And so that's what I learned how to do on social. I did it for a little company now called Walmart and got them
Mhm.
130% ROI year over year for 3 years, right? So this is a long
Yeah.
way of answering your question, but like the basics to reach out and scale widely are the same. They haven't changed, which is make connections with people and get them to trust you, right? That's what I want to help people do, and it's what I'm good at doing.
Yeah.
So when I write a post on LinkedIn, I'll get like 86,000 views, right? And then we teach
Yeah.
our AI those same tactics. Now,
Mhm.
this some of this can be taught to humans, but a lot of people, it's like charisma. You either have it or you don't have it. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
So to a large part, our AI is helping people not only write the content that'll reach out and connect with you, but then
Mhm.
functionally, scale it, because that's what we want is for one person to be able to act like an army and essentially write compelling copy that is effective for every employee in an entire enterprise that's on social. And that's what we do, right?
Got it. No, because of the point you said, trust. I think that is something that's very, very important to our audience as well. Because as news and media publishers, trust is pretty much the currency for them.
Yeah.
The audience pretty much visits their website, consumes their content because of the trust that they've built over the years. And so in order to build on that, like for say social media AI tools, how can they help news and media publishers to crack social media? Because they've been primarily reliant on Google and organic search, but with that being in I would say in a crazy state right now, social media is the next biggest source of traffic. So how can AI help my audience to
Yeah, I mean, so we work with some news publishers, and it's so
Mhm.
interesting because they are, as we were talking about online back offline previously, there are very much of the mind of like headline and link, but that's so one-sided. So what we learned from our friend David Allison, who owns the Value Graphics database, he's a consultant to the United Nations. He has done millions of surveys across the world in multiple languages and cultures and learned that there's 54 values, 54 triggers that make people do what they do. A trigger could be community, environment, family, productivity, stuff like that. And when you can understand what it is that makes people do what you want them to do, that inspires them to do that, you can sort of infiltrate that through the content that you're writing. And so that's part of the reason that we're trying to figure out how to help people is like, how do we uncover not only what words but the why behind the words, and um and help them understand, like, how can you use that elsewhere. So with it, if it's just the headline of the story, you might be only accessing one value of the 54 that can tap anyone to do anything, right? But if you were to, no, sorry, I'm plugging my own product, but if you were to go through the article and find, let's
Okay.
say, 40 highlights of throughout the article, which I'm sure there often are, right? And then run
Yeah.
one highlight once a week for 40 weeks. Number one, you're going to assume that your content is evergreen, even if it's a present day story, because people will
Yeah.
still, on Google, it lasts forever. The internet lasts forever. So you're going to get so much more out of that article, right? Even if you schedule one a month for 40 months, right? And then you're
Yeah.
going to make this crazy quilt of your calendar. You're going to have so much more to say, and you'll see exponential interaction with the article because now you're hitting humans on multiple levels because we're multiple faceted people. And we're
Yeah.
seeing this now because so the old way, Adi, the old way was like in radio, we'd play you one song 300 times a week, hoping you'd
Yeah.
hear it at once, which how annoying is that? And then in
Yeah.
marketing, we were all taught someone had to see, watch, hear your ad 7 times before it sank in. So that's why there was so much repetition in commercials, for example. Now that's almost 2 dozen. So the repetition is still here, but as humans, we're like, don't spam me, get away from me. So you have to come
Yeah.
up with multiple variants of how to tell someone the same thing to keep
Mhm.
them not only from repelling you, but to get them to pay
Yeah.
any attention whatsoever.
Attention. And under because as I was hearing you, the one word that kept popping in my head was sentiment analysis. Like if AI can gauge what sentiment is highlighted in an article, it can probably, like you said, target it differently. And I think that's a very very good point for publishers to notice, because since I was working in a publication, what I've seen is it would usually be one social media update or at max two for a particular story if it's very important, and it would just be dropped after that. And targeting it from different angles is something that I think Indian publishers are not doing that aggressively. They would usually take one sentiment or the strongest sentiment there is, and probably have a clickbait article on top just to get you to click it, or probably to get a reaction out of you on social media. But with respect to, say, even lately, for example, can it identify or say extract these sentiments from a post, suggesting journalists to say, hey, publish this, or these are the different angles you can take when you're doing a social post?
Yeah, exactly. So oftentimes, if you're going to give me a 5-page article, lately will surface honestly like 100 posts, but it'll
Hmm.
rank them. And so you will see, like, say, the top 20 it's serving you those 20 because there's ideas or values within the content it's choosing specifically for you that it knows. It's studying your social media analytics all the time. So it can see why people click, read, watch, and share your content. And it's applying that information to when it's extracting. So we always tell our customers, like, even though it seems like a lot, it's worth your time to go through and to if there are any edits that might need to be had, of course there are. It's AI, it's never perfect all the time.
Yes.
Do it for the full list of 20 because there's a reason it's surfacing you. I mean, that particular content, because it's saying like there's something here for you. Um, so there's a closed for us. There's a closed performance learning loop that is always being referenced so that what it's surfacing for you, it's not out of thin air. It's not because it's guessing, right? It's not guessing what the clickbaitious kind of portion will be. It
Would
knows.
be. Got it. So, apart from that, say with respect to the audience, is there any way that AI can, or rather even lately, can help determine the best time for posting certain updates based on the sentiment and based on what it's tracking? So, are there any features of that sort, or something that you want to highlight?
Yeah, thank you so much. Of course. So we implement the Chris Anderson long tail marketing sort of strategy within lately, where so his strategy is to focus on the little parts to make up the whole, which is how um, Netflix and AWS like literally made their money, right? AWS, sorry,
Yeah.
Amazon,
Amazon.
right? Yeah. And in radio for me, it was the same way. So I was in a very specific kind of format where we didn't play just one or two singles off the record. We played the entire album because a lot of times the albums have like 8 or 9 great songs, and if you trickle them out over time, just like we're talking, you'll get way more bang for your buck, way more engagement and sales in the end. So Lately does this automatically. So say we generate 40 posts for you, we'll show you what the optimal cadence and drip feed on times and days, and you could do once a month, twice a week, twice a day, whatever cadence it can help you sort of choose there. Um, and that's so important. I think, like, we just talked about repetition. So you have to have the quantity, and then we know you have to have the quality at the same time. But the drip feed or the long tail kind of drip feed, as we're talking about, is that thing that makes everything evergreen forever and gets you that track back. You've all had this experience where we've Googled something and there's an article from like 10 years ago,
Yeah,
right up at top,
absolutely.
still
Yeah.
relevant, right?
So I think even on social media, like you said, it becomes if you target from different angles, an evergreen content is still going to get audiences, but from multiple directions, so as to say.
Right.
The other question that also popped up is, say, what Google calls, if you constantly updating articles or constantly posting a lot of articles that are not helpful, it can come across as spam, and that does not get indexed or probably does not rank. Is there something similar on social media, or is it exactly the opposite? Do you have to spam on social media to get noticed? What is it like?
Yeah, of course. I mean, that quantity still is very important,
Yes.
but two things to remember. Number one, no one is going to your feed. So customers are always like, "Well, is it going to look like I'm spamming?" And I'm like, "But I'm not in your feed. I'm in my feed. I got a million
Yeah.
other things to look at, not just you." So like the chances of your 20 posts on Twitter that day, maybe I'll see one because I have to be looking at
Mhm.
the right time and at the, amidst all my other things, right? So you still have to cut through all that noise all the time. Um, but the second sort of thing there is that it's not spammy if it's quality, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Never. It never is. So like I don't know. The only way to do that is through to really do it all the time is through organic. By the way, not
Mhm.
not so much paid, um,
Yeah.
because paid can't react in the moment. That's why, and organic can. We have so many customers who are always like, a blah blah social listening, and we're like, we don't do social listening because even Facebook and LinkedIn and Twitter or X or whatever, they don't want you to go to another platform to do social listening. They want you to pick up your phone and see what the hell is happening, right? That's the best
Yeah.
practice. You have to have um eyeballs on like what you have to put yourself in your customer's shoes, right? I'm always
Yeah.
amazed, Adi, how many people that work at a company aren't signed up for the company's newsletters. They're not signed up on the company's social media. They're not receiving what the
Yeah.
customers are receiving. And if you can't see that, then how could you know how it feels, how they're going to react,
So that, yeah,
right?
absolutely. You dropped another nugget over there when you're talking about different platforms like Instagram, Twitter, and all. These platforms don't want the audience to move away,
Right.
right? And that's what a lot of publishers are trying. They're trying to get these people off social media onto their website. So if these platforms are actively, dissuading these guys from doing it, what tips would you give for publishers to keep their audience engaged on social media itself? If you could just do it, say on a platform, I say, what are the good
Yeah.
practices for Instagram, for YouTube, or X for that matter?
Well, the first thing I would do is I'd be like, go for a
Mhm.
little mind switch here because yes, clicks are great, but if you actually think about shares, you're going to get a lot more shares. And here's why. Clicks rely on trust, and most of the time nobody's giving me in the lead in to the link any value about why I should click the link. It's often check out my story.
Out. Yeah.
Yeah, which is so vapid
Yeah.
and lazy, and I that doesn't tell me what's in it for me, right? That's what I want to
Yeah.
know is why is this worth my time? What am I going to get out of it? If you're not, and most people are poor at communicating that. So if you're not great at that, switch and go for the share. Share is so easy because it relies on ego. So what you're doing is when you share content, you look like you wrote it. You look like the owner of it. You look like the smarty pants who's now the tastemaker. It's the same way
Yeah.
when we're in college and someone plays you a record and like, oh, this is so great. And then you share the record with somebody else. Now you're the cool one, right?
Yeah.
So if you can think about the content as, is this shareable? Is this something people will retweet or send or whatever it is? And it's so easy just by playing on the ego there. So how can we write this content to make me look smart? that's what that's
Yeah.
what people want, right? That's why Gary Vee gets so much engagement because those one
Yeah.
liners are what people read, you know other than that, of course, there's like algorithmic tricks, but they're pretty much the same. Like you want to you don't want to take any air out of the ball. Like if the link is the magical thing that you want people to do, I find that people are always putting a period in front of the link, and a period means
Yeah,
stop, right? It's
yeah,
like in soccer or football if you're not in America,
yeah,
right? Like when someone passes you the ball, you don't stop the ball, you push it towards the
yeah,
goal. You just turn and move, right?
yeah,
So that's a big one. A lot of companies, especially, shy away from emojis, but even companies have a resting bitch face on social, right? That you have to figure
yeah,
out, like, how do I make people smile, cry, react, have emotion? Like, emotion is what makes people click, like, comment, and share. That's what it is. And so, if it's this is again, it's again, put yourself in the shoes of someone else. I always say the best trick is just read the post out loud first. That's the first thing to do. Whatever you just wrote, read it out loud. If as you're reading it out loud, you're like snooze and you like have to keep reading it because you don't even know what you just read, then it's probably not that great. Or if you're tripping over it, if your mouth, the
hmm,
words are not coming out comfortably to you, that means that they're not going to be read comfortably to the other person. It's going to
yeah,
seem foreign to them. So that's an easy trick. This takes effort, Adi. I
yeah,
know people don't want it to. Even AI can't
oh,
fix this, right? And there's a reason,
yeah.
and because humans connect with humans, they don't connect with robots.
Absolutely. So I think for the takeaway here would be when it comes to social media, being on the receiving end, thinking of being on the receiving end and having copies or these tweets and stuff written in that manner is going to make a huge difference instead of simply having the agenda of getting them to click on your CTA. So I think this has been the most insightful point that you'd put across, especially one with sentiments, a different kind of targeting for a particular article or a particular piece of content, and the second one being how to approach it instead of primarily driving it away. I think growing or keeping your audience on your social page itself, or keeping them coming back to the social page for more, is also a great strategy that usually publishers overlook, because for them it's primarily all about getting people to the site to serve them ads and generate ad revenue. That said, because we've been speaking of AI as well, there's this one question that popped to my mind was with respect to biases. With AI, of course, it is dependent on the data set it's trained at. So when it comes to generating social media copies as well, do you see this bias creeping in as well
Hmm.
with respect to?
We don't, because we only look at your data. So, I mean, if you're already like a jerk, I can't make you Mary Poppins.
Got
you
it.
know, um, that's
Yeah,
for sure. But I think like that is a warning. When people are using um, ChatGPT, which we love ChatGPT. We were in the closed
yeah,
beta of them, but or OpenAI, whatever Meta. You need to really think about, like, is the content that I'm asking to create, if it's not tied to my analytics in any way, which it's not, right? Then how are they not guessing at what's best for your customers? Because it can only be a guess,
yeah,
right? And so
yeah.
if your strategy is like, let's guess what they want, you're just spraying and praying, and everybody knows that doesn't work.
Work. Yeah,
So
absolutely.
we have one way to solve that, but like, and even we're but there's the old way is the best way, which is go ask people. you know we do customer interviews, like, ask people what they want, what they like, what they don't like. It's not that hard.
But with respect to AI again, the kind of action that Google has taken, do you see Meta or even X for that matter take similar action on AI generated social media posts? Because what Google says is, hey, it's probably not helpful, so
Mm.
we're not going to index it. But yeah,
I mean,
what's your take on that?
they'll probably have to. I mean, nobody wants it's so nobody wants sorry, an untethered algorithm doing anything for anybody. I mean, right? Nobody wants foreign countries messing with your social algorithms, as has happened previously. And certainly, people are trying to protect themselves legally. What I think should happen and will happen is, like, when you're on a On a can of soup, it tells you what the contents are,
Hmm.
right? So X
Yeah.
percent of the protein or whatever, and like it should say, 20% of this post was written by AI. Why not? People won't care
Mm.
is what will happen, by the way. Just the same
Mm.
way, every
Disclosure.
yeah, the same way, like every time your iPhone asks you to read the agreement and it's like 80 pages
Yeah.
long and you just check accept.
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's all it is. So as long as there's proper disclosure, you don't see a major kind of impact happening with social media platforms, at least then.
The cat's out of the bag. I mean, it's like companies who still try to get people not to use Google Docs at work, and you're like, "What?" You know?
So, awesome. I think those are all the questions that I had with respect to social media and AI. And Kate, thanks a lot for giving those nuggets on how publishers can approach social media differently instead of purely with one agenda of bringing audience over. Thank you so much for joining us for this Izuto Live. And I hope to catch you soon.
I love you. Thanks, Adi. Cheers.
Yeah.